Hey guys, this is Shane from Echo Soundworks here. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create gray-inspired drum fills. So this video is in support of our newest sound set and sample pack, Grey Area, which comes with a bunch of sounds, presets, loops, samples inspired by Grey and to a lesser extent Zed. The info is in the description if you want to know more about that. So even if you don't want to get that pack, have no interest in it, that's fine. You're still going to learn some cool concepts in this video. Now, the Grey Area does come with a bunch of Grey-inspired drum fills, about 30 of them. But I wanted to kind of talk about the theory behind those. I got a rogue hair. So you can use your own samples or the samples included in Grey Area to make Grey style drum fills. Now, the cool thing about this is you don't have to use these exact samples. It'll actually be more unique and more your own if you start to just apply the concepts behind what they're doing and maybe use your, put your own spin on it, because then it won't be like, oh yeah, it sounds just like a Grey fill. It sounds like your type of fill, right? So let's dive into Logic 10 and get started. All right, so I've pulled up one of the demos from Grey Area, and it's one of the popular demos. It's one of the ones that was more Zed to me, and it was actually patterned off of the Alesso track with Florida Georgia Line, as opposed to, straight up Grey. But I do have a cool Grey fill in there. So let's listen to this real quick. So that's what's going on there. Now the fill is right here. All right, so let's make our own kind of Grey swoosh fill really quick. So the thing I like about theirs is that it's really open and it has just a cool, energetic kind of shift to it with the song. So I'm going to make a new audio track, and I'm going to go to the samples inside of Grey Area. And let's start with the snare, because it's kind of a good marker. So your snare is going to go on the 4th beat of the bar before your drop. So it's fine. Let's just take this one in. I can always just pitch it. So right now we have... All right, so let's pitch this down, probably a semitone. It sounded close. Change this to monophonic. All right, so now all we need is the swoosh. So let's make another audio track here. Now the swoosh goes before it. So we made some really cool swoosh samples. I'm saying swoosh more than I ever have in my life. For the pack, they are in the percussion folder. So we recorded like golf club swings, baseball swings. We actually got like a bamboo stick because those catch a lot of drag in the air. But let's just take that one in. So I'm going to drag this in. Now, the key to this is not sticking everything on like a 1 and 2, and, right? I mean, not an and, the 1, the 2, the 3. So this is on the 3. You actually want it to be on an and for the swoosh. So if we listen to this, it'll sound weird. I mean, it doesn't sound weird, but it doesn't sound as cool. You got to think that with a swoosh, it's like you're swinging something back and forth through the air, so the whoosh is going to happen pretty quick, right? So that's what you're trying to achieve with the swoosh. You're only having one hit of the actual swooshy sound, and then snare. So this will be on an and, right? It'll be on 3 and then 4. All right, pretty simple, but pretty cool. So the key takeaway from this is you don't have to use a swoosh. You could use any type of sound, right? Just this idea of this weird, unique kind of instead of like a snare roll or something like that, you're using something unique, something people haven't heard a million times over. Now you can actually expand on this and add more sounds. So like we could take this layered sound and we could put it, we could pop it right there and have some different things going on. All right, so the second fill type that we're going to look at that Grey has used, they used this in Crime featuring Scott, and they think they used it in kind of like a build-up in another track as well. It is this weird kind of like percussive fill that's very quick. It's got a marching drumline vibe, but it's not with an overtly marching drumline sample. It's kind of there in feeling, but each hit is actually a different pitch. So let's check it out. Right, so it's pretty cool. I'll solo it in isolation. All right, so you can hear that there is multiple different hits going on, so let's check it out so you guys can create something similar. So this first hit is actually the lowest pitched one, and it's one of the percussive sounds. Sounds like that. Doesn't sound like much on its own. There's the second one, so it's going up in pitch, right? It's kind of like a little arpeggio, right? And the timing is real simple. It's just every tick, right, on a 16th note division. 4x4 16th note division, right? So it's not too crazy. And then that last hit is layered with like a tom type sound. It's kind of like a timbale, but not really. And there's also a couple marching snare sounds. So you'll notice that there's a lot of marching snare samples in Grey Area, and that's because Grey uses marching snares, drumline snares. So a couple things, if you're trying to make something like this, the pitch you should try to get it in key. If I start moving this pitch around, it's gonna sound really weird. But you can use any type of sample with this. Just make sure you cut it short. If this was like a longer sample, your listener shouldn't be able to be like, oh, that's definitely a djembe, or that's a conga, or that is a clap, right? It's kind of like these weird sounds where you're like, what is that? It's reminiscent of this, but it isn't that entirely, right? That's kind of the cool thing about this type of fill. And then reverb. Reverb really helps. If you don't have reverb on this, it sounds really weird. So I have the same reverb on each track, and this is actually in a group. And in the group, I think I have a formant filter coming from Serum on the samples to kind of make them talk a little bit. But yeah, so if there's no reverb, that's what you get. It's a little bit too dry, especially in context of the mix. Right? Because it's that drumline marching band feel, I feel like it helps to have the reverb just in that. Anytime you hear that type of sound in the real world, it's usually like at a big stadium or something, and there's going to be natural reverb that each snare hit's going to ring out, right? It's with a bunch of drummers too, so that's kind of how you can create that type of fill. It's not too hard. The only thing you need to be aware of is sample selection. The pitch should be in key, go in that ascending order, and then also try to get some reverb going on, because without it, it's not going to sound natural. So the third and final Grey-inspired drum fill that we're going to check out in this video is actually more of a drum build. Grey uses these marching band drumline snare builds, or layers it with a more conventional snare build. We did that for one of the demos. Let's check it out. Right, so these two baby blue tracks down here are the bounced out audio. So all I did to make this was use a couple of the about 5 or 6 different samples in the Grey Area pack, the marching band snares that we recorded. So this was a little bit of a pain in the ass, not gonna lie. This isn't as easy as the previous 2 fills that we looked at. Now, I'm gonna give you 3 tips and tricks to do this. And I think if you follow these tips and tricks, it will work out well for you. So first, I would strongly suggest using MIDI as opposed to audio to create this, because having velocity sensitivity really helps. And then also, you need to have different samples. If it's all the same sample, because you're going to be doing rolls at 48th note, 60th or 64th note, 96th note grid, if it's all the same sample, it's going to sound like a machine gun. So that's why I have these 6 different samples essentially. Now, what I did with the MIDI, and let's just solo and listen to the MIDI. Right, it sounds pretty convincing, and that's before it's processed. That's just coming straight from battery. No effects or anything. So what I did was I said, okay, I need to choose my main hits. And if we listen to those, it's these 2 layered together. Right? And then I flammed a couple of the hits. So a flam is where you kind of like roll into the hit on a snare drum or a drum, right? So I'm just kind of offsetting this by a weird like swing value. It's not on any grid that I know of. And it sounds pretty cool. It makes it sound more realistic, right? It's kind of like the snare. It's like the drumstick bouncing a little bit on the snare head. Now, the next thing, you might be wondering, well, why are there so many samples? Like, why do I have so many different, cells active essentially, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Well, that's two reasons. First, to avoid that machine gun effect. So this little roll right here is at a 96th note grid. You'll see if I change my grid setting to 96. This isn't like, that wasn't like some swing. They aren't in the middle of nowhere. They're on grid, but at a 96th division. So if I take all these notes here that are on different cells, which are different samples in battery, and I go like this, it's gonna sound like a weird machine gun. Now, that works. We've all done that in some capacity, right? But that fits more of an electronic style drum fill or drum roll, snare roll. So I was trying to go for realistic here, so you can see that each sample is different inside of battery. Now there's these 2, I actually lied, these 2 samples right here are the same one, but here's a cool tip and trick. You can change the starting point and just change like the attack, maybe the pitch by a few cents, and it should be enough to offset the really noticeable kind of artifacty type sound you get with, doing really quick rolls and re-triggers with the same sample. So those are kind of the keys, right? Pick your main hit, and then pick the 2 different hits you want to be your actual roll. And then in that roll, make sure you're using a velocity sensitive roll. And you'll notice that I have the red and orange. Those are being hit harder. That would be like the drummer hitting them harder. These are quieter, a little louder, quieter, a little louder, right? And I just go through with the velocity tool and kind of just move things around and listen. Right, so these can probably have some more velocity. Let's bring these back in. Let's actually take this one down, take that one up. Right, so the more you kind of tweak this, the more realistic it's going to sound, and the more expressive it's going to sound. And then, of course, you can process with reverb. We have reverb on the marching band snare samples in Grey Area because they sounded really unnatural without them, but we do have the dry versions for the crazy people out there who want dry-sounding marching band snares, but man, I think they sound a little bit strange, but that's just me. All right, that sums up our look at Grey-inspired drum fills. If you have any questions or comments, post them below, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. And if you guys want to see more videos like this and you like this video, please hit that like button and hit subscribe. All right, thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you next time.